Hey, I'm Undine, and this is my guest Sophia today. She's from Wisconsin in the United States, and today we are talking about the differences in United States compared to Europe, because Sophia has a unique perspective on this topic as she has relatives in Denmark. She has been in Denmark, and now she's living in the US. And so we're going to talk about minimalism a little bit, about consumerism, and yeah, let's just go. Please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, my name is Sophia. I live in Wisconsin, United States. I've lived here most of my life, but I've also lived abroad in Denmark, where my father and my family's from. I've just graduated from college, and yeah, just building my life one day at a time.
Okay, so thank you for being here. First of all, I'm really happy to have you because this has been in the making for quite some time. You might not know that, you, the viewer, you might not know, but we've been trying to film this for weeks now, for I don't know how many, but a lot. And then everything hit at once. Like either didn't have time, you didn't have time, things were going on. But now, this time I hope that we finally record this thing, because I'm actually really excited about this. So, maybe let's get into the whole minimalism thing right away, because I started this podcast and the working title is Normal People, because it's supposed to be just about normal people, what is going on in their lives and their story with minimalism and their perspective, just like you and just like me. Like, I'm not a special person, I'm just a person on the internet. And so I want to know more about how you came across this topic, how it came into your life, because this term minimalism is so specific. And did you ever identify with that? Did you tell yourself like, oh, I think I'm a minimalist? Or how did that happen? How did you come across the idea? And so, because that is how we came in contact.
So I think the term minimalism it's kind of self-explanatory. But the first time that I really came across a movement of minimalism was by watching the documentary Minimalism by the Minimalists, which is Joshua Fields Milburn and Nicodemus. So that was the first idea that I had in thinking that maybe I'm putting too much energy and too much of my time into things and not so much into the experience of things. But I think my movement towards minimalism started when I became interested in sustainability. So consuming less means, impacting the planet less. So that was my goal. My initial goal was, how can I impact the planet the least? And that kind of morphed into minimalism and understanding that.
So you had heard about this minimalism thing before. You heard about it from the minimalists. And you found that kind of inspiring, but it wasn't really the thing that started it, that kicked it off. That was sustainability, or did I get that right?
I think sustainability came first. That was my first thought, is being protecting the climate, protecting the earth, or living in a way that doesn't harm it, at least. And then, as I was making small sustainability changes in my life, I came across that documentary, and it had me thinking,
okay.
Yeah, it got me into thinking about how having less gives more to life or leaves space to do more.
And at what point or what stage were you in your life? Because I'm thinking back of my own story here, and I don't know if you know, because I don't expect you to know, but I decluttered everything within 2 days when I was, I think, 18 or something, or 17, 18, and I was still living at home. And for me, minimalism came first and sustainability came later. It wasn't even connected at this point. I just wanted to get rid of all the clutter because it felt overwhelming. So that was kind of how I got into that. And I'd be interested in the kind of, the state of mind or the state of your life. What was that like back then? And how long ago was that?
I think I had been living in Denmark I had just finished high school here in America, and then I moved to Denmark for a year, and I could only take one suitcase full of things with me. And I was so stressed about it, trying to figure out what are those things that I need to bring. And it wasn't until I got to Denmark that I realized, or I got to Denmark and I felt like, oh, I have not enough that I need, and I left so much behind. But when I got to Denmark, I thought, oh, I didn't touch half of the things that I brought with me for 6 months. So it made me think, I don't need to be worrying about that quite as much. And you really never need as much as you think you do. And sometimes you feel like you need something that you just want. And it's hard to be able to tell when you want something and when you need it. And I think if we
I agree.
If we can learn how to self-reflect enough to distinguish that, you will free up a lot of space and energy and, physical space, mental space, energy, and even money in your life. At least for me.
Before you moved, would you say that you had a lot of things? Would you say that it was stressing you out in a way? Or would you describe it as just average?
I would have said like a couple years ago that I have like an average amount of things for an American in the Midwest. But, after traveling abroad, I kind of feel like I have a lot more than most people. And I think part of that is because my mother's side of the family grew up around here. So there's stuff, generations of people's stuff that gets moved from houses. And also where I live, there's very big houses. It's not uncommon to have a 3 or 4 bedroom house.
Okay.
So there's so much space to fill, and you kind of feel like you have to fill it, And then when you do fill it, sometimes you don't go in a room for a long time, and then you forget what you have,
I can only imagine because, as a European, I've actually never been to the United States. But what you see from all the shows, TV shows, Netflix shows, you always see this kind of stereotypical American house where you enter and then you're in a kind of a mix of hall and living room and kitchen. And you're standing in all of it, like not in New York, but maybe like in just another area, not a big city. Yeah, where there's no hall and you just come in and there's stairs. The stairs are going up to where the kids live. And then you also have multiple bathrooms. Is that correct? Because that is my cliche of it.
Where I live, yes. Yeah.
Okay.
But of course, America is so big and so many different people. Over the years, I've become more and more hesitant to characterize America. Because I know my experience is small and also privileged.
I'm just pointing out the stereotype. So that is just a stereotype that I see from the TV shows that I've watched. And the European stereotype, in my opinion, is also over the top. If you look at the apartments depicted in, let's say, crime dramas, for instance, usually it's so over the top. Like there is a person and he or she, they're working as a cashier. And they live in this huge old building in the city center with a 4-meter high walls, like really high over the top walls, and gorgeous furniture, all tasty and light, and balcony and wooden floors, which probably a person with that job could not afford. And it's also very, very tasteful. And did I say tasty? I say tasty, right?
It works both ways. Okay.
Yeah, and that thing. So I think probably both is not accurate, because like I'm living in the standard European apartment. It's not a gorgeous antique place. It's just a normal apartment, and I guess the same exists in the United States, but still we can see these differences of size. I mean, if you just look at portions of groceries of any kind, I think if you go to an American supermarket and you go to a Danish or a German supermarket, you will not find the same big packages, I guess.
It's funny, in preparation for talking about this, I had a conversation with my father about it, who's Danish, and he said he used the example of a supermarket as well to explain how, like, in American supermarkets, you have 10 million brands, and there's so much competition, and, I mean, coming in bigger packages for sure. I don't know if there's Costco in Germany, but that's a big thing here.
No, I don't think so. I mean, in France, there are huge supermarkets. They have these Super U, Hyper U, big supermarkets. They are just huge, and they have like a big parking lot. They are not in the city center, and you just drive there, and then you can basically shop for a whole month. But here it's more like in the areas, in the inhabited areas, there is every once in a while there's a little supermarket. And it's supposed to be so that you can walk there, get your grocery bags full, and just go home and shop for maybe the week, half the week.
So much of America is like very vast, and people live far away at times because it's so big. People live far away from cities, and sometimes grocery stores. Like there's plenty of people around me who have to drive an hour to 3 hours to get to like Walmart.
Wow.
So it makes sense to want to get everything, at one time.
Yeah, and you don't just want to get something to eat. You might want to get like a cute little candle as well. So I don't know.
That's why supercenters make sense,
in a way,
I guess.
Yeah, so in a way it kind of encourages consumerism. It doesn't just give you the necessary, it gives you a little bit more, and maybe not like the best products, maybe the cheaper products. So I don't know, because usually if you go to a supermarket here and the kind of candles you can buy there, if I want to use that example, so they are not like the most sustainable. So it's just affordable and practical.
I think that's definitely something I've noticed. To get technical, sales tax here is something about 5.6%, whereas sales tax, in Denmark is a lot higher, and especially for luxury items, like candy, cars. Cars, I think, is like 125.
I think it's 17 or 19%.
Yeah, so it automatically discourages consumerism, I think. It's interesting because you can buy a lot of very random things here in America for cheap, but the highest expenses are the most necessary, like healthcare, education, things like that, which is a little bit ironic, but it certainly shows a big difference.
Yeah, that's actually that's also a difference from here to there, or from there to here. That's very hard for me to imagine. I think the healthcare system has improved now in the US. I'm not really sure how that works, but from my perspective, the US has always been something that is a place where having a good insurance is harder, and where you have to have a good job to have a good insurance. And in Germany, it is more like everyone has to be insured. It's mandatory. Every health, every treatment that ensures you stay in good health and you live. You have to pay for glasses and for getting your teeth done. But other than that, I really don't know anything that isn't covered. And I don't know what that is like. Because it changes maybe the perspective on consumerism as well. Because if you have uncertainty in your life in that kind of way, because everything depends on being in good finances, more than in a welfare state. Do you think that shifts actually the perspective on belongings, as in belongings being an insurance, or?
Here in the States?
As in general, having less of a safety net, And for instance, if you look at hoarders, I don't know if that is more common in the United States, but I believe so, because there's a lot of press about that. So
I would imagine.
I'm not sure. I I don't want to make any assumptions, but
I think most people, just as human beings, you know, if you can get a lot of something that you like cheaply, then probably you'll do it. And I think that's less possible in welfare states because people generally have a higher tax on luxury things. And, you know, okay, using things as insurance here. I would say more using things as comfort. You know, because if you can get cheap food that tastes really good and, you know, cheap clothes and cheap stuff like that, which...
like little treats here and there.
Yeah, or big treats or little treats all the time. That's more common, I think. Yeah, again, it's the irony of being able to do that, being able to afford little things that are maybe not great or unnecessary, and then not being able to afford bigger necessary things like health, you know. And that's not everybody. You know, some people are happy with it and some people are doing fine, but there's plenty of people who are not. So, but I think...
So when you were in sorry, we have the time delay. We always have a little delay, so I didn't want to interrupt you. But I was thinking about what you said about Denmark. So you were abroad, you were studying abroad, and then you noticed that you needed less things, and you were really thinking about that. And I would like to get back into that topic because eventually you came back to the United States, and I wanted to know more about your time in Denmark, how that impacted you, and what it was like to come back. Could you tell me more about that?
In terms of like minimalism?
Yeah, minimalism, lifestyle, and your or sustainability, feeling changes in the definition of need, maybe.
Well, there's definitely a shift in the definition of need because I was never happier than, you know, when I had a suitcase full of things and being able to travel more freely, which is easier in Europe than it is here. So coming back here, it's kind of hard because it was coming back to all the clutter that I left. And it's been really hard to, I don't know, because you can get so used to being where everyone around you also has that problem, you know? And then I decluttered almost too much. Like I got rid of some things that were, you know, bringing me joy, but I was just trying so hard not to have too much. You know, I've stopped doing that. I have the things in my life, you know, art pieces that aren't necessary, but I love them. But I definitely, because I went to Denmark when I was 18, you know, that's when you're an adult and you start thinking about your own finances and taking care of yourself. I was looking for ways to make the most out of the little money that I had and of, you know, my time and energy also because the world is so overwhelming, especially when you're just becoming an adult. You want to leave space for your mind and your living space to be a calming presence. And that, for me, meant having less things.
That sounds actually so adult and mature, you know. I think for most people that just move out from home, it's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna have the time of my life and get drunk and party, you know, and not like, oh, I gotta go home and have that calm space so I can relax. You know what I mean? Like this sounds very old soulish. This sounds so much mature. Like not in a bad way, not at all. But
no, I think it's like, a compliment. I appreciate it.
When I moved out, I was, you know, like I decluttered everything beforehand because it was weighing me down, was horrible. And then when I moved into my first own apartment, it felt like, oh, I never want to have anything in here. And everyone was giving me crap like, oh, you need a table, oh, you need chairs, oh, you need this. And I
had that as well.
No, I like it empty.
I had that as well.
You had that same?
In Denmark, I was working at a laundromat, like a factory. And so I rented a room in the neighborhood where the factory was. And I didn't buy a bed or like anything. And my grandparents, my grandparents who also live in Denmark, they were like, oh, well, we can go shopping, we can go to Ikea and get, you know, some, like a couch and some chairs. And I was like, oh, I have a chair. They're like, but don't you want more chairs? I was like, I don't need more chairs. Real wise of me. No, but, you know, actually I was like, just like, I made like a makeshift bed for a little bit because I didn't know how long I was going to be staying there. And I was like, I don't want to buy a mattress. Yeah. So that's kind of what I was doing, but it was okay for me. It was really okay. The one thing I did not skimp on was books. I bought a lot of books. But
oh yeah, me too.
That made my space feel good for me, so that worked.
Yeah, I mean, books are an intellectual thing as well, you know? Like, they're just, you have them and you can brag a little bit, but not too obviously. It's like,
depends on how thick your book is.
But,
right.
You don't have to look at them, but there they are.
Yeah, it's true.
I was living in Nuremberg when I was moving out, you know, after I moved out from my mother's apartment. And there was this big church in the city center, and behind it, there was always this book stand, more like a wagon. And you could go inside and buy books, and every book was just €1.
Nice.
And so whenever I came home from work, I worked at the clinic there, and I just passed by this book stand, and I thought like, oh, I need some Sartre. So I got some. And eventually I also got rid of the books, but in between, you know, I had, I think, 1,200 books, like a whole wall of books.
I've never counted mine. That's amazing.
Yeah, I counted them when I moved, and I moved 2 times. So I kind of counted them when I put them into boxes just to know. And now I have a very tiny bookshelf with 100 books. But still, I sometimes feel like, oh, that's not minimalist, you know? Like if you look like at other extreme minimalist channels and they just have a reader. But, you know, I like my books. And if that is the one aspect, you know, like minimalism changes all the time, you know?
Yeah. That's been really important realization for me, because I got into the idea of minimalism, and then I got really excited about it when I realized what it could do for me. You know, more space, spending less money, more energy, more focus on creative things, which I make art. So that was great for me. But I got a little bit stuck in the idea of, I can only wear black t-shirts. I can only wear white t-shirts. That kind of thing. That doesn't work for everybody, and it shouldn't have to. You know, that's how I ended up decluttering a little bit too much, where I started, feeling like my space wasn't quite mine because it was a little too empty for me. So, I got back the art pieces, and I got back the things that made me happy, and it was still a calming space, even though there was a little bit more on the walls.
Yeah, and I think, it can make that more cozy as well, you know. For instance, I always had the principle, I don't want anything on my wall. And I don't have anything on this wall. And I remember that I watched the video of another minimalist, a person with kids also, and she said something like, oh, I don't have the pictures on the wall, and I don't have the little footprints. That's just not me. I'm not that person. And I thought, am I that person? Because I have like one handprint and one footprint from my kid that when she was a newborn. And it's actually pretty hard to take these footprints. And I just wanted to make one for my father because he just likes this kind of stuff. So I wanted to make one. And then I ended up making 3 because there was so much clay, and it was fast drying clay, so you had to make them now or never. So I said to myself, so why not? Okay, let's just make a few. And then I ended up finding it cute and hanging it on the wall. And today my kid always looks at it and like, those were my little feeties. And I'm like, yeah, those were your little feeties. And it's not like this makes me less of a minimalist. And so if you have a bed or if you have books or whatever, that doesn't make you less of a minimalist. It's about the principles and the lifestyle and the the essentialism mindset, I guess.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I think to get back to the Europe and US topic, that is the same all over the planet, I believe. You know, this mindset. It doesn't, you know, European minimalism in this aspect is not different from American minimalism, even though the issues that people have might differ in magnitude or type.
Yeah, that's something that is interesting. Specific, or at least in my experience, there has been, you know, a lot of privilege on my part. I grew up in a good, you know, with a really good support system of people that love me, and, you know, with enough money to be safe and healthy and to get an education. So I do wonder at times if this is like, I have had much more opportunity or the privilege of having space for introspection enough to come to these conclusions. I mean, I don't know. There is something that feels inherently privileged about having so much stuff that you try to have less, maybe.
Yeah.
The irony is not lost on me.
Yeah, I mean, you know, if you struggle with even accumulating things, then we have that issue again, what I was talking about before. I said, like, you get clingy. You are afraid of letting go because it represents money. The things represent money, even if it's just like something very cheap. And it's harder to let it go because it feels like an insurance, you know, there's still money in that. Maybe I need to sell it someday. But then again, there is like this thing, it's called a sunk cost effect. So if this money is gone, it's gone, and you get back like 10 cents on the dollar on your stuff usually.
Yeah,
or maybe you get back, if you're really good, you get 30 cents on the dollar, I think.
Usually, I mean, people here will use houses as investment, sometimes cars, but cars usually lose value over time, I think. But there is definitely that idea of holding money in a piece of investment. I'm not sure if that exists as much in Europe. I'm not sure about even in Denmark, but here, definitely.
I think houses mostly, but Germany is not the country of many homeowners, I would say. If we go to other European countries, like let's say Sweden or Finland, I think Sweden has 80% homeowners. Like, correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but I believe so. And in Germany, it is the other way around. Like, most people here just live in rental apartments. I do too.
I find that to be more sustainable, honestly.
Like renting apartments? Mm-hmm. Why is that? Because of the magnitude of it, or because...
I think the idea that some people have here is that there's so much space, and so people build big things, and there's also the idea that you have to have your own thing that you made that's yours. You know, there's a lot of ownership emphasis. So I think that leads people to build bigger and better when we have many structures that are perfectly livable, in my opinion. You know, and it's also, I mean, a lot of the housing here is not made out of things that are biodegradable, but that's a separate issue.
Yeah, that's true.
There was one thing I wanted to touch on in terms of, like, the privilege of having space to think this stuff through. I think it's like, for me, I've had the privilege of, if we're thinking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if you like that model, you know, the bottom part of the pyramid for me was filled in pretty well from a young age. So I had a lot of time from a young age to think about this and to curate my life into something that made me feel calm and made me feel satisfied and fulfilled. And I think sometimes, in many ways, a welfare state is also in that way similar, provides the similar safety net and stability for people to think about this kind of thing more than they do in America, where people maybe don't have that stability of health and safety, or maybe even family. So yeah, I do wonder how minimalism will pick up speed here in America when there's many people who don't have that privilege.
Maybe we can draw an analogy to something like yoga here, because I think I see minimalism as a practice, not as a lifestyle or something fancy or something that has to do with design or anything. But if I think of yoga, you know, there are projects in I can't name the project actually, but I actually saw a movie a while ago, and it was about a yoga project in an African country. I will put it here if I can find it. And that was very enabling for the women that participated, or women and men, I don't actually remember. But that was like a project trying to enable people and to encourage people to live a more healthy life. And so like this, I think minimalism can be for everyone. Like yoga can be for everyone. It's a practice. Mindfulness practice can be for everyone. Of course, if you are like living in a slum and you are looking for food every day, you're living in a war zone, yeah, then you're not thinking like, okay, I could do warrior pose now, you know? Like, but even in my darkest times, when I feel like really sad and lonely and I'm stressed out, I can go back to meditation. Like if I lose everything, you can't take yoga and meditation away from me unless you cut off my legs or whatever, you know. Like, and even then, I've seen people in a wheelchair practice yoga. So that is a practice, and minimalism is also a practice. So, and even if you don't have much, you can curate what you have, and you can try to make the most out of what you have. So I think the problem is in how it's communicated, you know, as in if every person on the internet promoting minimalism is a privileged white person that's just talking from above and being like, look at my fancy clothes, look at my all black here, and then here's my MacBook Pro, and here's my whatever watch and fancy designer lamp, you know, like if that is the image of minimalism, the what you see the most, then that is where minimalism is going. But if more people get into it that are maybe not that stereotype, then I believe it could actually be encouraging for everyone, you know, because it can be more relatable.
Again, that's what I hope also for the sake of sustainability. You know, the more accessible that kind of living becomes to people, I think the healthier people will be in general, and also the better for the earth that will be, if it doesn't remain a privileged mindset. Or a mindset that's partial to privileged people. I think everything you said is very right, though.
Yeah, but it's really it's hard to describe that, you know, and the wording for me is not always easy. I'm not a native speaker, so I don't want to offend everybody. So yeah, I just wanted to say that because I think it's important that this is open to everyone and this is useful to everyone. And I mean, this is exactly what this podcast is supposed to be about, you know, like just inviting everyone. And by the way, if you are listening, if you are interested in coming here and telling your story, you don't have to be a famous person to be in the podcast. This is like a tiny little podcast. If you want to be in it, just write a comment. And
I've never been on YouTube before.
Yeah, everyone. Yes. So that is so great, you know. It's just like a normal conversation. We're just sitting here and talking about something that we find interesting, you know. And I mean, there's really so much to say about this, but yeah, let's take a look at the time. Oh, we're actually pretty good. We're not that bad. I think we have like 40 minutes now. We can talk some more if you want to. So if you have more things on your mind, then please share them because, we're just...
One thing I was thinking is that, like, even in this picture, I'm wearing a white t-shirt in my white room with black bedding. It's most of my things that I use every day don't match. So if anybody is feeling like they need to go out and get a whole new set of clothes or bedding or a new iPhone case because it doesn't all match, you know, you can be a rainbow minimalist. You should do that. You know, get the things that make you happy to look at, and you know, you're using things, not only looking at them. So It's okay if the lifestyle doesn't look the way you think other people think it should. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. I actually like that because, you know, if it's that's more individual, and you know, it's just, it doesn't have to be all the same. And so I'm wearing something black. Actually, we talked before the podcast, and I asked her what she's wearing. So because I say I want it to be pleasing for the eye of my viewers. Like, I don't want to have too much contrast and wear something yellow and stick out too much. I just want to have something calm, and, you know, like, whatever calms you. But yeah, so what would you say, at what point are you now with your minimalism? Are you content? Would you say that you have everything that you need, or is it like a constant thing going on? Is it still a process?
Like you said, I think it's a practice, and it's much easier to accumulate things and to not think about it, to not be a conscious consumer. So that's definitely an exercise in minimalism, you know. I think right now I'm living at home, so I'm thinking when I move out, that will be the next big step in determining what I need. I'm hoping to just move, put everything in boxes, and then move to where I'm going to go, and then come back and take out what I need, and then hopefully I'll end up with everything I need. Possibly declutter the rest. I don't know. That might be a bit extreme, but we'll see.
Yeah, but who knows, you know, like, I mean, moving out is so, I actually think that's interesting, you know, because just that state of being finished with school, being able to move out, start something new, you know, not knowing where you go, and having that freedom to just start over, actually, I think that's pretty amazing. And I mean, it's just nice. It's just nice to start something new. And so, in a way, maybe I envy you a little bit, because I'm sitting here in my family apartment, and everything seems a little bit static sometimes. But on the other hand, that's comfortable as well. You know, it's like everything has its time in life.
Yeah, everything has its season. So things come and go and pass and change as they should.
Yep. Also, I'm so tired.
Yeah. We've been, I struggled with my technology, and then we got started later than we thought.
Yeah.
But we have.
No, I'm just saying that because, you know, if I'm not telling the viewer at this point anything more interesting, and you made your points, and I think we're getting to the point of saying goodbye.
I'm okay with that.
But yeah.
How are you going to do that?
I'm terrible at goodbyes, so I just do it whatever, you know, because there are no rules here. This is not your conventional podcast. Mm-hmm. We just do it like we do it on Zoom, and it doesn't have to be super staged.
It doesn't have to be
pretty.
Cute.
It's just,
yeah.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't have to be cute. I go like, cheers.
That is kind of
and we
cute,
say goodbye.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Okay.
So thank you everyone for watching. Thank you, Sophia, for being here. Thank you for sharing your story. And so if you have any questions, then put them in the comments. And if you have something you want to talk about, or if you want to be in the next podcast, then also put that in the comment section, please. And thank you so much for watching. And yeah, that's it.
Thanks.